Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 88. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Tuesday edition of the Terrible Podcast. Dave, how you doing?
Doing good. We're getting there. We're almost to the new year. The tampering period will be here before we know it.
Yeah, just what is that? March 14th, 3 days before the start of the new league year, and then of course the 17th is the start of the new league year. I think
it's the 15th, right?
15th?
2 days before.
2 days?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure if they can find a way to make it 3, someone's going to be on that phone early trying to tamper and probably calling a lot of Steelers free agents because they got a lot of them and a lot of guys who are probably going to hit the open market. So a lot to discuss today on that front of things. But I do want to start, Dave, our discussion on Big Ben and updates to his contract. Now, the last time we talked, we had most of the details about Ben's deal. We didn't have all the details, including specifically some of the language on the voidable year extension stuff. I know we now have that information, so you can explain to the listeners what is that language is and what does that entail and mean for Ben and the Steelers going forward.
Yeah, it starts with we were waiting to know what the and all this is pretty much based on what may or may not happen in 2022 as it relates to the voidable years and the June 1st date, and if there were potential for any cap relief in dead money as far as that goes. But according to the great Joel Corey, he let me know, I think over the weekend there, that Ben's salaries from 2000 for the extra 4 years, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 are all minimum salaries. So that's that's obviously notable. And then Peter King announced in his column on Monday that the contract voids 5 days after the Super Bowl. So That says a lot right there. It looks like the Steelers are going to have, barring them working something out, which before that contract voids, it's going to void, and it's hard to see that going any other way at this point. And assuming that is the case, and the contract does void 5 days after the Super Bowl is played, then the Steelers would have a little over $10 million in dead money, and you can't work that towards June 1st unless something is worked out in the meantime there. So it does indeed look like 2021 is going to be it for Ben Roethlisberger, barring something monumental changing at this point.
Yeah, that's always been my sense, even before this deal got done. And then as we learn about, continued details of this contract, you just get that sense more and more. Hypothetically, if Ben were to have an amazing season, they go on this great run, and he wanted to come back, Pittsburgh wanted to bring him back, any idea how that would look and work, considering how quickly that deal voids after the Super Bowl?
I mean, obviously they'd have to rip it up somehow and then work out a new deal, plain and simple. But I think didn't we just recently see kind of Tom Brady do the same thing there in that contract void with the Patriots, and obviously went on to sign with the Buccaneers and all. So it would be something monumental at this point, I think.
Right. So, yeah, that is the language of it. Anything else on the details of Ben's contract that we haven't covered that we should hit on, or is that basically hitting every single point?
No, I think that's the long and short of it, to save the $15.34 million in cap space this year. And, the other aspect of it is the little over the $10 million in potential or definite dead money, as it looks like right now with the contract voiding.
Not to make this Cowboys depot, but just any quick thoughts on the initial figures of Dak's contract? 4 years, $160 million is the report.
Just looking kind of briefly at the raw numbers. I mean, second place now, I believe, in new money average behind Patrick Mahomes, and that's probably where You would expect him to be slotted at this point here. My main takeaway was Jerry Jones dealing out that money at this point. Maybe he knows what the cap number and the TV deals. My mind went in the other direction. Look, they really didn't have a choice there. I don't think overall. I mean, are you going to pay him that big second franchise tag number, or are you going to get a deal done with him? And obviously, he would be highly upset if he didn't get that deal, as opposed to the tag again there. So I think this is just a culmination of what's been coming with him, since he was tagged the first time there. So those quarterback numbers keep going up, and they always will, even on the heels of this pandemic and all like that. But I think my overall takeaway is probably there's some positive out there as far as the TV deals, and we'll see what the cap number has to say whenever that thing finally gets released.
And I think it's a message to NFL teams, and hopefully the Steelers will be in the situation 3-4 years from now of pay those quarterbacks as quickly as you can, because that price went up a lot from a year ago, even coming off that nasty ankle injury that Dak suffered. Because I think the deals that they almost had in place last year, even the year before, I believe, were cheaper than what he ultimately got, at least based on the initial reporting.
Yeah. Look, I mean, if you think you have a franchise quarterback and you can get him locked up, look, then we're going to see what happens with the Ravens now, right? They've got a big decision coming up with Lamar Jackson. One would think, where's his number going to fall now? And the thing is, boy, and we'll see how much the cap number starts escalating here, but we know from being fans of the Steelers and watching them all the years with Ben Roethlisberger, trying to maneuver around a salary cap with a franchise quarterback, it ain't easy. And there's a lot of quote-unquote can kicking that goes along there, especially if you're going to try to field a competitive team year in and year out and spin up to the cap. So, you just hope that you get the return on the investment there.
Right, and it's funny you mentioned the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, because Eric DeCosta is speaking right now and says they hope to get a deal done with Lamar Jackson. They've had initial discussions about it, but still have a ways to go. But I think they will get a deal done at some point. Good question how much it's going to be. Will it be more than Dak? That's usually how these things go, but we'll see how that one turns out.
You would think it's going to be right there in the $40 million a year category, right? I don't think you can. I don't think he's going to reach Patrick Mahomes' number, but I tell you what, I know Dak Prescott celebrated his contract yesterday. Some great visual of that, and I bet Lamar Jackson had a little bit of a fist pump as well.
Right. Saying hopefully that's me in a couple of, maybe as early as this year, I don't know, or next year. But to bring it back to the Steelers, update us on the cap situation. Dave, we know they're cap compliant. They are under the cap right now, but what are the latest numbers?
Yeah, looking at it, and the NFLPA number did not update to show the re-signing of J.C. Hassenauer to the exclusive rights free agent tender that we talked about. I think on the last show there on Friday there. But his contract should only move that number. I think $120,000 in total once the roster displacement takes place there. I have the Steelers right now at 54 players under contract, and based on a $180 million cap number, which obviously is the new agreed to floor right now between the NFL and the NFLPA until we hear what the official number is. I had the Steelers just a hair under $3 million under the cap at $2.997086, specifically under a $180 million cap number. So now we just sit and wait and see what other moves. Once again, I check every morning, and the NFLPA number did not move this morning, and it did not show the Hassenauer deal. So we sit and wait. Is there going to be the Stephon Tuitt restructure? Is there going to be a contract termination? Or maybe two. I think if we see one, it'll be one and one only. And what else? Will we see Derek Watt restructured? Will we see Chris Boswell restructured? Will we see any other extensions between now and next week? If you go back, I went back and looked at some of the postings we had from a year ago, and boy, things moved quick. Getting to the point where they put that franchise tag on Bud Dupree, and all that kind of stuff happened in those last few days there. So I think this is classic Kevin Colbert here, right? Mm-hmm. Just sitting and back and waiting, making sure you have all the firm numbers, and then I would imagine that they've got a lot of this paperwork knocked out, and especially with as we mentioned, the tampering period, just less than a week away now at this point. These T's are going to need crossing, and these I's are going to need to be dotted real quick here. How much further will the Steelers get under the cap? We'll see. That's part of the anticipation here. I'm really looking forward to this next week.
But on stuff that you still fully expect to happen, you still fully expect Tua to get restructured before 17th, correct?
Well, I mean, it depends on their plans, right? I mean, if they're going to re-sign any of their own unrestricted free agents, you would think they're going to need a little bit more space. Now, they might be in that 2.997 under the number right now. Might you be able to fit a cap charge for, like, let's say, a Cam Sutton in there? Possibly. But outside that, and we're still obviously waiting to see the news on signed exclusive rights tenders by Marcus Allen and Robert Spillane, but those things aren't going to eat too far more into the cap number at this point here. I don't think we expect, you can't really afford any of the restricted rights free agents right now in the over 2 million number that they have without getting more space. They're going to clear more cap space. We just, Tuitt would be the obvious way that you would think that you would go initially, and then obviously after that, Boswell potentially to save around $1 million there, and then Derek Watt, as we said, I think a full restructure on him would clear $880,000 specifically there, and then a termination. What's going to happen with, or maybe a cut down in pay. Something's going to happen here, and you would think leading the list of things within that would be a Tuitt restructure. But if they don't have any plans to re-sign any of these guys, then we'll see.
Mm-hmm. In terms of terminations, obviously Vince Williams is the most likely cap casualty. Just to ask it point blank, do you think they cut Vince? What do you think happens with him?
I think they're going to do something with him, either cut him or ask for a pay reduction, especially if they're going want to move a little bit more cap space here. I mean, it's so hard to tell. Boy, Vince Williams sure has gone dark for a while, right?
Very quiet.
That's kind of unusual for him. I think not to see him active on social media, so it makes you kind of wonder what's going on with him there. So, I think it's very plausible. Push comes to shove, hand to the fire, I think something happens with him.
Okay.
So does that mean cut? Does that mean drop him down to a minimum base salary? I think something's going to happen with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree because they really need that space. I mean, we think the cap, we don't know exactly where it's going to come in at, but it's probably going to come in closer to 180 than anything else is kind of my still feel and guess of the situation. And so
I'm still holding on. I'm still holding on like cliffhanger that, still holding on, or like by your favorite movie, Die Hard, when he has Hans, hanging out hanging out the window there.
Well, Hans falls in that, so I don't think you should.
Apply it how you will. Maybe I'm the one that's falling out the high rise here in a little bit. I don't think it's going to come in at 180 million. I think it's going to come in higher than that. Mm-hmm. I hate to say that after all this time, my new low water mark, I'm grabbing the parachute and bailing out at 183 million here. It certainly seems to be the case. Andrew Brandt had an interesting article, I think, yesterday on SI.com something along the lines that the highest if I read it right, the highest that he says it can be is 185 million, and he has it kind of firm by reading the way that he wrote that. So does that mean that 185 million is it? I mean, judging by what he wrote, it seems like that might be it. That would be a huge, at this point though, 185 million I think would be a huge victory overall. I obviously thought it may, the chances of it coming in higher than that. I mean, I had dreams and aspirations. Well, I've had a lot of dreams and aspirations throughout my life. None of them come true, but that, maybe it would flirt with the flat cap number. I think that's really unrealistic at this point, but who knows? Why the hold up in announcing this number yet? Is there still some sort of negotiations going on? Because look, the NFLPA knows at this point that the middle class, players is really going to be affected. We've already seen a lot of this happen so far. Probably more forthcoming here, but. Long story short, I will be mildly excited if the number comes in at 185 million.
And so will Vince Williams, because that's his best path to staying on this roster without taking a pay cut or without getting cut. I hope Tiff wasn't around to hear that dreams and aspirations comment.
Hers have obviously fallen short as well too with me, right?
No, never. We'll see though on Vince. But yeah, if they want to sign, Juju, if that ends up happening, then I don't know how you do that and you hold on to Vince Williams. I don't mean to make it so black and white and those things being mutually exclusive, but if they want to be more aggressive and re-sign a bigger name, they got to be able to free up some more money somewhere else, and Vince is the most likely man to do that.
Well, I mean, what's the more plausible here? Who are the free agents, the soon-to-be unrestricted free agents that, I guess, let's see, a week from now would be, start of the new year. It still wouldn't have happened yet.
8 days. Yeah, we're 8 days away.
Let's say a week from Friday. Who are the current soon-to-be unrestricted free agents most likely to have been re-signed by then?
Tyson Alualu, Zach Banner is probably the most likely to come back. I still think Cam Sutton is a good chance that gets done. Not that I would call it maybe the most likely, but I still think he'll come back. Juju's still a chance, again, not in that most likely camp, but in terms of the other non-minimum salary benefit type guys, I would say that Sutton, Juju are the guys who have a chance. I would consider Bud Dupree gone. I would consider Alejandro Villanueva gone. We barely even talk about Villanueva as a free agent anymore. We just kind of assume that he's gone, and Mike Hilton's been counting down the days for free agency, so sounds like he's ready to get paid somewhere else as well.
Yeah, and speaking of Mike Hilton, just judging by an interview that he gave on Moving the Chains on SiriusXM NFL Radio, which, by the way, is a great subscription if you're looking to do that. Money well spent over the years listening to that. Always want to give them a shout out because they've been always good to me on Twitter as well too. I know how hard I've been working for this opportunity. Hilton said on Moving the Chains, being in this situation, coming from being an undrafted guy to possibly having a nice free agency this offseason, I'm blessed to be in this position. He goes on to say, from top to bottom, starting with the Rooneys, it starts with them and trickles down. Everybody knows when you become a Pittsburgh Steeler, it means much more. It's all about winning and getting that Vince Lombardi trophy. Their culture is second to none. I enjoyed my last 4 years here. If possible, I'd love to be back. We'll see in the next couple of days. That doesn't sound great, and Drew Rosenhaus is obviously, I think, his representation as well too. And look, nobody deserves to get paid more than Mike Hilton right now. Obviously there's other guys too, Juju, and I mean you could go down the list here, but Mike Hilton got caught in that in the Steelers restricted free agent trap. And where we've seen that happen. Alejandro Villanueva is a perfect example of getting caught in kind of that exclusive rights, restricted free agent trap. It's not the Steelers' fault. It's not the players' fault. It's just the way things happen, and it's kind of that loophole, in the CBA that allows for that kind of stuff to happen there. So Mike Hilton deserves to be paid. I will be shocked beyond shocked, if they're able to find a way to bring him back. And look, I mean, if anybody deserves that bag, like I said, it's Mike Hilton.
Yeah, absolutely. But knowing that Hilton is very likely to leave, I think if you're the Steelers, you can't let Cam Sutton go. Obviously, you can't be stupid with the money you're going to throw at him and overpay. But I mean, it would be, and I've said it many times before, it would be devastating to lose both Mike Hilton and Cam Sutton. So Hilton's gone. That means you have to turn your attention on bringing back Cam Sutton. It's
so hard to gauge his market value, though, right?
Yeah. What are you thinking? 4 or 5 million?
Man, because of his kind of look, he's played well when he's played, especially the last couple seasons, right? But has he played enough for another team out there? And all it takes is one, obviously. Is there one out there that views him as a bona fide, at least starting, let's say, corner, or a slot defender there? And if that's the case, you would think his market could be as high as what, 6-7 million. Maybe higher, but I mean, obviously you had the pandemic involved, and once I don't think the top tier unrestricted guys are going to be phased much here. But what happens in that next group? Obviously in a normal year you could pencil those guys in down the list, but how much will the market bear because of what the cap number is this year? So. Man, it's been so hard to kind of gauge him. I mean, 3.5 to 7. I mean, that's a large range.
Yeah.
And that's why it's been hard to that's why I haven't done kind of a projected contract on him, because I don't have a good feel for it, Alex. I really don't. I know what he means to the Steelers and how they should get him back. But I mean, once again, if he does hit free agency, and you would have to think his representation has a pretty good idea of probably what he could get on the open market at this point. So it's going to be brutal if they have both those guys, Mike Hilton and Cameron Sutton, both walk out the door. But I'm with you. Of the guys, going back to kind of the original question we asked here, who are the guys, not the lower end guys, not the Marsh, who else?
Berry,
Gerald Hawkins. I mean, those guys, if they re-sign those guys, those are going to be minimum salary deals. But the guys that, obviously could cash in a little bit here. You mentioned Zach Banner, and even him, that's not really cashing in big. It's probably going to be somewhere along the lines of what he made this past season here, which was what, 1.75 million? Was that the number?
I think so. It sounds right.
You think he's got a shot? You think Cameron Sutton's got a shot? Beyond that.
Juju. Where do you come in on Juju? Yeah, because all the buzz is about Bob Labriola's comments that Juju's gone, he's not coming back, and what is your reaction to that?
I wrote middle of last season that don't be shocked when Juju walks out the door. I still will not be shocked if Juju goes, but there is some reason to think that it's still plausible that they could get him done. What is that plausible percentage? I tell you what, my gut tells me. We kind of chatted about this last night in direct messages there. My gut, for some reason, tells me that they're going to re-sign him. Now, that's based on a lot of factors. That's based on kind of his attitude throughout this thing. It's based on, every time you bring up any kind of report that he's going out the door, that he won't accept the Steelers' best offer and all, his mom is on social media kind of trying to nip all that in the bud. If that wasn't happening, I'd probably be more inclined to lower the plausibility factor here. But knowing what's his market value, it's got to be at least $16 million, right?
I would think so. That's what we've discussed. I know Jason Luckenfor is talking about it's not a hot market. He might only get 11, but I don't buy it.
I don't buy that. And he's got to cash in. Every opportunity. You just can't take that you can't take that low of a number just to stay. Right. He's got to get at least $16 million. Now, I mapped out that contract back in October or whatnot, and I think I had him, 17 and a half, 17 and maybe 3/4. I don't know, but it was between 17 and 18. And that first year cap number was around $6.5 million, right around in there. Now, when you take the net cap effect and all like that, I mean, realistically, could you get Juju re-signed and pay him a fair market value deal with a first year cap number between $5 and $6 million? I think so. And then if you take the displacement off of that, which is another $660,000, could you realistically make the net effect under 5, I think it's plausible. And then look, we don't know how, we don't think that the Steelers are going to venture far away from non-quarterback structures here. But if there was ever a time that they thought that they needed to do it to retain a player, then it makes sense to start with him there. I think they like Juju. I think Juju's age plays into it. But then you go back to the old argument once again about the Steelers and paying wide receivers top money on their first deal back. It's just it's really kind of unheard of, to make them top 10 kind of earning player in the league there. So there's a lot of factors in here. And then obviously with the pandemic and the market and all like that makes it tough. It's still, in my eyes, plausible. My gut tells me that they'll re-sign him. My common sense tells me that they won't. So that there's a lot to chew on there. That's where I am on it. I'll just leave it that I will be a little more shocked if they keep him than they don't. How's that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I feel very similar, and basically all that amounts to is I don't know what's going to happen with Juju, because my heart says that he will come back. My brain says he's going to go, and so maybe that's me just trying to hedge my bets over here and play both sides of the coin. But
now should they? That's a whole different argument, I think. Should they? There's a whole, is he a number one? Rod Woodson was on the radio yesterday saying that he wouldn't, especially at that money. He doesn't call him a full. He doesn't believe that he's a number one wide receiver, and that's really been the conversation about Juju ever since AB left. Right? Is he a full bona fide guy? But in 2019's a tough season to judge on Juju, because obviously you didn't have Ben Roethlisberger there. Juju missed a few games due to injury on that, but then you turn around and he had the 100, or had the how many receptions did he have this past year?
96, 97.
Yeah, 96, 97, almost 100. But the yardage that you normally see that comes along with those numbers, and how many times throughout the year do we say, boy, look at his route tree, looks more like a running back route tree. He had to get a lot of his yardage even after the catch on top of it. We just did not see Juju, and probably to no fault of his own, wasn't targeted that much down the field. Who do you want to blame that on? Do you want to blame it on Juju? Do you and him not being able to be used like a number one? Do you want to blame it on Ben Roethlisberger? Do you want to blame it on former offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner? Do you want to blame it on all the above? That's part of the conversation here. You just don't catch 100 passes in the league, though. So there is that, and he is a good combat catcher. He is still very young. Boy, every time you see his age, what is he, 24, and you see it listed, you think, man, that's got to be wrong, but it's not, and that would be one of the reasons why the Steelers would re-sign him, is because he's still got another 4 or 5 years left in him at a minimum here. So what's the right decision here?
I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. I'm comfortable with bringing Juju back. I want to bring Juju back, but if you do have to change the way you use him in your offense compared to 2020, where you can't just run this tight end route tree of just being safety valves and checkdowns. He will have to be used more vertically in bigger plays. His longest reception last year was 32, 33 yards. He averaged 8.6 yards per catch. That's the lowest of any receiver in NFL history who caught at least 90 balls in a season. So if you're going to get the return on investment for a $16, $17 million per year type of deal, that guy can't catch 90 balls for 8.5 yards a pop. I mean, you're just not going to get that return on investment. There's still value in those short yardage situations, third down, to give him the ball. He's a go-to guy, but you will have to imagine him differently in this offense. But all that said, from a talent standpoint, I'm fine with bringing Juju back. That would not be the wrong decision, provided they tweak how they use him in this offense.
And we've seen him in previous years, going back to like 2018, right? He can catch footballs down the field, and he can run after the catch, and he can combat catch. We've seen him on the other side of the average yards per reception and the average depth of target. So we've seen him do that. We just didn't see him do that last season. I mean, if you're only going to use him in that quick, short passing game, then the 80, 90 catches a season don't mean anything. However, if you moving forward can use him and get, even if it means a drop in his catches down to, let's say 80, but he's averaging 12 point whatever yards per catch, then he would earn his money at that point. Now they can make it all work, from a cap. It's what we put a lot of emphasis on the cap number, especially this year, because they are cap strapped. But assuming you move forward without a franchise quarterback into 2022, you can make a $16 to $17 million a year number work, because obviously if they did re-sign him, it would include a roster bonus, it would include a high second year 2022 base salary, and then what would happen to him next March? He gets restructured, right? If you need the cap space. So the overall contract and structure won't be the issue. It just comes down to, is he a player worth, and can you get the worth out of him, out of a, pay him $16 to $17 million a season, and that means at least 80 catches a year and having his average yards per catch jump back up there.
Right. And it feels like the Steelers would answer yes to that question of, like, is he worth it? And I'm sure Ben would definitely say that he is worth it for whatever that is worth. So, provided that the money isn't that big of an obstacle, then what's the reason for a deal not to get done, I guess, is the question.
And look at it from his I know a lot of people, it plays probably a small part in this, or people don't care about it, but look at his representation as well, too. Who's it? Rock Nation, right? And look, if you go look at their clients, their football clients, Juju pretty much leads the list there. And this is really kind of the first big deals for a couple of their higher profile name clients. So if Rock Nation as a company comes out of this taking what at least most of us believe Juju's fair market value is, well under that, that's not good for business. That's not good for signing new clients. If one of your major guys that you have under contracts taking several million less than perceived market value. Now they'll obviously say, well, look what we do for them on the marketing side, blah blah blah. But not all the clients are going to have the market presence that a guy like Juju does here. So you can look at it at their side of the fence as well too. They're going to fight tooth and nail to get him at that 16 to 17 mark. At least I would. I mean, I don't care how you frame this thing. If you look at what the average, where Juju should slot in this hierarchy now of these kind of 8 to 10 wide receivers right there in a grouping, with the low end being, I think, Jarvis Landry, and the high end being, I forget who's on that high end. Is it Mike Evans or around in there?
I think Chris Godwin.
Or yeah, I mean the logic, at least from doing this for a long time, says Juju should slot right in there at 17 million at a minimum, and at an extreme discount minimum of say 16 million per season. So I think they want him back. I think it's just a matter of maybe making it work.
But they can make it work. There's nothing that says they wouldn't be able to make it work.
If you want a player back, what have we said about the cap number all along? You can make anything work. Now, might they have to change the way that they do deals here? Possibly. Might they not have to do that? We'll definitely see. We know that there's a couple million more out there in cap space if they want it here in the next 7 to 10 days here, and we've got at least a loose belief of what a contract might look for him on top of it, and the net effect and all like that. So if they want him back and they feel 16 to 17 million is the fair price, then they can make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Do you think if Juju resigns, would that happen before March 17th, or do you think he hits the market for a couple of days, day or two, and then would end up choosing Pittsburgh.
I think I don't think this is an Ike Taylor situation here, or a Ryan Clark kind of situation here.
Refresh me on those situations.
You can't let those guys go out there and look around. I don't think, and expect them to come back.
Okay, because I think that was the report from Fowler that they were going to monitor Juju's market once he hit and kind of evaluate from there, maybe come in with an offer late, but who knows how much of that is actual reporting or just speculation. Well, if
he gets outside that door and able to look at that market, that guaranteed money he's likely to get, unless the Steelers once again come off of of what they do with firm guarantees. Mm-hmm. It would really, at that point, if he did walk around outside in free agency and then came back, it would, in my opinion, it would be because he really wants to come back.
Right. Well, I think he does want to
come back. I'm saying really from a bottom line guaranteed money aspect, because there's going to be at least one team out there that you would think at least would fully guarantee the first 2 years of his deal. Especially at his age, right? I mean, so we're talking about cash flow at look, I think Juju's take, whoever gives him the take in this next 10 days, he should be able to pocket $20 million in 2021, and that's that's first year money. That's base, that's roster bonus, that's signing bonus. He should be able to put $20 million in his pocket, I think, or damn near close to it. And then the cash flow from there, assuming the deal's around, $17 million per year. I mean, you're still talking about about 38, 37 million first year or first 2 year total take putting in his pocket there. So there's bound to be a team out there willing to fully guarantee him $38 million in the first 2 years. And the way the Steelers typically do things, I mean, those are virtual guarantees. Obviously the first year money's, fully guaranteed, signing bonus and for all practical purposes, base salary and those kind of things. If the Steelers were to let him walk out the door and him come back with the best offer and for the Steelers to match that, it would probably mean matching first 2 years at least of guaranteed money.
Mm-hmm. Which they don't typically do.
They don't typically do for non-quarterbacks,
Right.
And that's part of going back to the whole Le'Veon Bell thing. That's pretty much the reason why he walked out the door,
Mm-hmm. Right. So we'll see. I don't know. Obviously, like I said, I just don't know exactly where it's going to go with Juju, but I'm with you. My gut's saying they find a way to bring him back.
I mean, if he obviously is willing to accept 14 or 15 million per year, I mean, it makes it a lot more plausible, but I mean, I don't think he should have to accept lower than that.
Even at 16 or 17 million, I still think the Steelers would and could do that.
I think. I mean, they can. It's how bad they want to do it, and we're going to find out here. Once again, my gut tells me that they'll get something done, but the logic side, looking at the numbers, tells me they're probably not going to be able to do it. And I've been on, pretty much have been on that. They're probably not going to be able to do it side from a logic standpoint since the middle of last year. But obviously back then we were looking at a cap number at being what, 175 million?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was what the floor was back then. We really had no idea where the cap was going to go. But for the Steelers' philosophical standpoint, aren't really talking about we still believe we're a Super Bowl team. Obviously, they're bringing Ben back, trying to get one last ride out of this thing. For them to have that public stance and then to lose all their marquee top free agents, Bud Dupree, Mike Hilton, Alejandro Villanueva, and Juju Smith-Schuster, those things are kind of, opposite. The idea of we're going to make a push at it and, we're going to lose every single one of our top dollar free agents. You think they want to bring back somebody of that group, and Juju obviously is probably the only and most likely name to come back of those four.
And while history is history, I mean, when was the last time that they didn't bring at least one of their top unrestricted guys back? I mean, last year, right. I think it was only one, right? It was just Bud Dupree, but and on the tag, wasn't he the only really the only top?
Well, Javon Hargrave went to the Eagles.
No, but I'm talking about bringing him back.
Oh, bringing him back. Wait, what are you asking?
I'm asking when was the last time that they didn't bring back at least one of their top
Right.
soon to be unrestricted free agents.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'd have to research that, but they're very good about obviously growing, homegrown talent and then retaining that talent. They do that with the majority of their guys. So yeah, I hear what you're saying.
They will retain at least one. I'll put that out there. Is that and does Cameron Sutton fall into that? I mean, I guess that's up for discussion.
He'll be like a tier 2 kind of guy because he's not going to get the money that Dupree and Hilton and Villanueva and Juju are going to get.
Right, but we'll see how bad they want him back for sure. Yeah. But I know Bob. Look, Bud Dupree. I don't unless Bud's willing to wait and take a much lower number. He's gone. I will be extremely, extremely surprised. Beyond surprised if they're able to retain him. The same goes with Mike Hilton at this point. But when it comes to guys like Juju and Cameron Sutton, I'm still in a very plausible stage of them being able to retain not only one but possibly two.
Right. The concern with Sutton, just to go back on that discussion briefly, is, and I think I mentioned this on a podcast last week, was that some team, the camping period begins, and some team, an outside team, is going to view him as an outside cornerback and try to pay him as such. And for Pittsburgh, who's going to view him as probably a slot cornerback, at least for this season, that's going to be a big price difference, potentially, at least. And so that's my concern, is that some team will just throw a ton of money at Cam Sutton because they think, whatever reason, is that he can be an outside cornerback in this league.
If they do lose Juju, does that affect if they retain Juju, do they draft a wide receiver in the first 4 rounds? Do they draft a wide receiver at all?
Well, day 3, who knows what can happen. Colbert's pretty good about taking those flyers on day 3 receivers. They would not draft a receiver in the top 4 rounds if they re-sign Juju.
And if they don't,
they probably do take a receiver top 4 rounds.
Okay,
that's my feel of it.
It's been fun speculating about this, but it still can't get to the firm. I still can't get to my slam my fist down. I guarantee this is going to happen stage with guys like Sutton and Juju. I can virtually guarantee you that, or I'll slam my fist down and say no on Dupree and Hilton. Not going to happen. Mm-hmm. But I just can't slam the gavel down when it comes to Sutton and Juju, because I know if they want them back bad enough, those two, they can make those two work.
And then with Villanueva, that's also a no on.
Yeah, it's hard to see that.
Right.
It's just so hard to see that.
Sure. So basically, Juju and Sutton are the 2 wild cards here, because you have the camp of guys we know they're probably going to bring back Alualu, Zach Banner, the low-level guys. We know the guys are not going to bring back Mike Hilton, Bud Dupree, Villanueva. So you just have the 2 in-between guys of Juju and Sutton. Those are the 2 names that will define the Steelers offseason in terms of free agency.
Yeah, I don't know where you think Filer. I've been in the camp for a while with Filer that's not going to happen. Now, could you classify him of man? Where is his market at? Right. Is he the offensive version for the Steelers for Cameron Sutton? Just saying, man, just can't get a good feel for where his market value is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fair to state that. But look, I overshot years ago on Ramon Foster, thinking, I think at the time Foster was like a $5 million a year guy, and he came in a couple million less than that, but he was all, that guy, cut himself shave and bled black and gold, does Filer do that? And I'm not so convinced. He obviously, he had a nice take this past season. But when you look at, what is he, a guard? Is he a tackle?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. The question is, how do you value him? Is he a guard or is he a tackle?
And especially in this year's hierarchy of unrestricted, he's down there. I've been in the camp for a while that Filer's unlikely to return. If he does return, it's going to be at an extremely low number. But I would think right now they even have Banner probably higher prioritized than they do a guy like Filer.
Mm. If they do bring Filer back, you would imagine it would be to play right tackle. Because he's not going to play left guard, because Dawson's going to be your left guard next year. So,
right.
But I would assume that would make him more expensive to be your starting right tackle, but it is hard to gauge. So yeah, put Filer in that camp. maybe a tier down from obviously Juju and Sutton because it is a little less impactful. But I would consider him still one of those wild cards.
And it's obviously not a huge deal if you lost a guy like Tyson Alualu, but
the way he played last year, be a pretty big deal.
And if you did bring him back, it shouldn't be one of those I wrote and we've talked about several times how that the new veteran benefit signing and all could play into the Steelers' favor when it comes to that. So it wouldn't be a huge move the needle type situation with him, so it wouldn't be cataclysmic. Oh my God, they brought Tyson Alualu back, just as it wouldn't be that with Zach Banner.
Right, yeah, those guys should be cheap, and so there's no reason to believe that those guys will be playing elsewhere next year. They should come back as Pittsburgh Steelers.
I'm excited for this next week, man. It's going to be fun. I mean, especially when we get into closer to the bewitching hour there. Look, I mean, like we said, you would think within that last 48 hours, we're probably going to see a lot of something happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe as soon as that cap number gets officially set, hopefully soon, then that may spur even more action. But yeah, going to get really busy, and had a lot of fun speculating, but I'm ready to find out some results and get some of these questions answered.
Yeah, me too.
Dave, you mentioned Rod Woodson speaking earlier about Juju, also talked about Ben, and he was excited to see Ben return and appreciative of him taking a pay cut to come back for the Steelers, even if that was more of a show of good faith than anything else. One thing, though, that I thought was interesting from an X's and O's standpoint, and it feels like Rod Woodson may be a reader of SteelersDepot.com.
It sure does. I wish he'd give us a shout out.
Because he was talking about, trying to run more play action and improve the run game and make this offense better and more efficient. And his suggestion to that, and kind of meshing between what Matt Canada is going to want to do and what Ben likes to do, is pistol, which is a conversation we had a couple weeks ago. I had a long article writing about why I think 2021 could be year of the pistol for the Steelers offense, and that idea of still being in a semi-shotgun, and that's good for Ben. He can see the defense better. He is away from center. But that also sets up more of a downhill run game and sets up play action much better than traditional shotgun would. And so Rod Woodson is fully on the pistol bandwagon, and we've been driving that bus for a little while now.
Yeah, that and the pistol, and how many years we've been talking about play action, and look, he can still do that, as you pointed out very astutely in your post. When did that go up? A week and a half, 2 weeks ago, or
like 2-3 weeks ago?
Okay, but all the signs point, if you want to max, if you want to make Ben happy, and as far as using the play action and making that effective, and then on the same point there, maximizing the threat and the use of a running game, which we all obviously hope gets better here. And if you want to put him back there where he can still throw and feel comfortable and not have to turn his back to the defense, and if you still want to be able to use the elements of the Matt Canada motion, all of it points to the pistol there, right? That it seems like it would be now look, you'd still have to ask him to get under center it some,
Sure.
And look, we saw a couple times him do that this past season, and it be effective. Specifically, I think the touchdown to Ebron that even included Watt, Derek Watt in the backfield. I think wasn't he under center there and play action on that play, and then down the seam for the touchdown there, and then you go back to, I think it was the game against the Bills. It just minor plays like that, and even in a season where the running game was crap, and that's one thing. Play action can still work even if you're not running the ball effectively. Now, can it work even better if you're able to run the football? Sure. I think you get those linebackers maybe to get sucked in a little bit more here. But the fact of the matter is you've got to do that more and not so much out of the shotgun like has been the case these past several seasons here. So Woodson knows he's seen it enough there. And another thing he talked about, he was asked about Ben and that short crisp passing game and how Ben's not really look, Ben did take his shots down the field. I think that's kind of a narrative out there that's on. He took his shots. He wasn't connecting on them, and that's a big aspect of it, and it makes it feel like didn't push the football down, but there were times where he tried to push the football down the field. He just, more times than not, in his average depth of target and all showed that it was mostly that quick passing game. And in today's NFL, you have got to be able to push the football down the field. Look, we saw Mason Rudolph put up some robust down the field numbers. Not that you can use that as a measuring stick by any stretch of the imagination, but it can be done. If you want to win in the NFL, you have to play good defense, but you have to have a good pass defense. You have to run the ball effectively, successively at a high percentage, and you have to be able to push the football down the field. And the old throw short, run long just is not going to do that on a week-by-week basis. Sure, you might have a couple games where you bust off the explosive plays, but the explosive play aspect in the NFL normally comes as a result of pushing the football down the field more than 8.5, 9 yards. Plain and simple. So if they're going to want to make a serious run at this thing, and especially if we are resigned to the fact that the defense might not be as good as it was last year, that means the offense has got to make up the slack there. And in order to do that, you're going to have to, just like Rod Woodson says, you got to be able to run the football, got to be able to use play action, got to be able to push the football down the field. And I think Ben Roethlisberger can still do that. You just got to devise a way to do that.
Right. And I think, from the play action standpoint, pistol is the ultimate compromise to having Ben get away from center, but also creating that downhill run action that improves your run game. And that study I did that talked about pistol, if you look at the pistol runs versus non-pistol runs, it's a small sample size, I'll grant you that. But in pistol, they average 5.2 yards per carry. Their success rate was 52%. In non-pistol, their yards per carry was 3.7, and their success rate was about 4 or 5 points lower than the pistol success rate. So again, small sample size, I understand that, but I think you've seen a better run game, and you'll get better play action at a pistol than you will get at a traditional shotgun.
And look, if you're going to run the football too, you're probably going to have a little bit better tight end. Somebody, the blocking as a whole, obviously across the offensive line, has got to be better. And if you're going to use two tight ends, you're going to have one of those guys be able to block. On top of it, you're going to have to see increase. Look, Matt Canada's got his hands full. We're going to find out because, I don't think you can take Roethlisberger and just slam him into what we've seen a lot of Matt Canada do, especially in the college game, right? So he's going to have to, we'll see how good he can be by forming a system around the players instead of the players around the scheme.
Right, but that's the goal of any good coach. I think any good coach is able and knows that is their job, is to match what they want to do with the personnel they have. And that's when you can do both of those things, and that's when you get really good results.
You just can't have them drop back 40-something times a game, week in, week out. Now, occasionally you might have to have that happen to win a game or whatnot, get one of those those shootouts and all like that. That's okay. But week in, week out, having Roethlisberger drop back 40 times a game and throwing 2-yard passes most of the time and not hitting down the field, it's not plausible to work on a game in, game out basis.
Right. I'm with you. Dave, yesterday I had my wish list for free agency on skill positions go up. I had on Friday the offensive line wish list go up as well. But we talked about that on Friday's show. And so for the skill guys, again, it is not a really enticing list. But when I looked at the free agent running backs, here's the type of back I want them to bring in. I want them to bring in a Wilde Moore type of third down receiving back, because they don't really have that guy on the roster, assuming James Conner is going to be gone, which is basically a certainty at this point. So 3 names who I think fit that third down receiving type role who are going to be really, really cheap. And it starts with Chris Thompson from Jacksonville, who's going to get probably let go in free agency because he was in Jacksonville last year to play with Jay Gruden, his old coach in Washington, but new coaching staff there. Thompson be, I think, a great option as that third down back. Dion Lewis from the Giants, a little less of a receiving threat, but had a pretty good year out of the backfield last season. Pitt guy, Tomlin knows him and has spoken highly of him in the past. And Theo Riddick of the Raiders, who didn't play much really the last 2 seasons, but has been one of the top third down backs in football for several seasons. And I still thought on his limited 2020 tape showed still some juice, explosiveness, and would be a really cheap 1-year guy. If he doesn't make your team, then you really haven't lost a whole lot invested in him financially. So any of those receiving backs to me is the way I would approach free agency. I wouldn't sign, Chris Carson or even a Marlon Mack because I'd rather draft an actual runner because they're cheaper, they're younger, you're going to have them for longer, etc. But I'll sign some cheap pass catcher in free agency.
It would have to be cheap.
Yeah, all these guys should be
uber cheap.
Yeah.
I've always been a Duke Johnson fan.
Yeah, someone mentioned that, and that does make sense, but I feel like there's going to be a little bit more tied up in him financially than there would be for Theo Riddick or Chris Thompson.
Right. And look, we expect him to draft a running back still, though, right? And I mean, it's even as much as against that old first-round running back thing, boy, if Najee Harris is staring you in the face there at 24 overall, you would think that's going to be hard for the Steelers to bypass that.
I would think so. I would definitely think so. I did a mock draft the other day, and we traded up for Zach Wilson, your guy. So that's probably not going to happen. But it was just a fun thing. And then I traded back in the second round and picked up some extra picks. But anyway, that's just a random tangent. At receiver, the couple names on there I think are kind of more interesting than the running back position. How about John Ross? How does John Ross strike you, Dave? Steelers love pedigree, former first-round pick of the Bengals, 4.22 speed. He actually had a couple of decent years in Cincinnati, 2018 and 2019, before falling totally off the map and out of favor this past season. But Steelers love those first-round projects. I think John Ross, for, again, cheap, could be one of those guys.
He would have to be one of those. I mean, he almost falls into that Dwayne Haskins category that if you could make it a no-risk signing, fine. I mean, obviously, he has he's sparky enough and has the pedigree. Man, the guy has had problems staying healthy and dropping the football, hasn't he?
Right. Yep.
And so, I mean, if you're gonna go into the reclamation business at the wide receiver position, it would have to be dirt cheap. It would have to be right at the minimum there, So I mean, I look, like I said, I would sign you for on a minimum signing benefit contract. I'm all for handing out those contracts because you don't have anything involved, from a guaranteed money cap perspective there. Now, obviously, the culture, that would have to fit in kind of the style and all like that. I mean, I understand why you put him, why you think there, but once again, and it's kind of a blank across the board here when it comes to the Steelers in free agency, especially this year. How cheap? show me the money.
Or don't show me the money.
Or don't show me the money. I think look, you have a great grasp on how they do business, and our list that we put out every year, or you specifically, is isn't sexy at all, but it's what the Steelers do, and Kevin Colbert likes pedigree, and he likes sparkiness, and he likes to put Band-Aids on pre-draft needs just to cover his bases.
Right. Well, how about this name? Someone with more production probably will cost a little bit more, but if they have some money they don't end up spending on, this is all working under the hypothetical Juju walks in this scenario, they will have that money to spend. Willie Snead of the Ravens, the Steelers' killer over the years, always has good games against them. He's going to be a free agent. I mean, could he be a slot option for Pittsburgh? I think it actually makes a lot of sense.
Who?
Willie Snead.
Oh yeah, boy, he's killed the Steelers over the years, hasn't he?
Yeah, so go sign him so he doesn't play against you.
You would think his market's still going to be out there a little bit too high, though. I would think.
Well, I mean, if Juju's gone, they can use that, because if we're talking about giving Juju $17 million a year, they can make a contract work for Willie Snead, assuming it's not a 1-year deal, which I don't think it would be.
Yeah, I have a tougher time imagining that.
In what sense?
Just from the money aspect with him.
What do you think he's going to cost? I mean, I don't know exactly what he's going to come in at.
Couple million, probably.
Yeah, but they can afford that. Again, they can afford Juju, which we know they can. Then they can afford Willie Snead.
I just think the want to afford Juju versus the want to afford someone like him, there's a little bit of a gap there.
Right. No, I get that for sure. I mean, Juju's been more valuable, but if they lose Juju, I'm planning to do a take on this for tomorrow's terrible take. Is like, who's going to replace Juju if he walks? Because in in-house options, there aren't really any great, seamless. Oh, let's just next man up. Juju's slot receiver capability. That guy really doesn't exist right now.
I've always contended that if they have to initially, that Claypool would be the next kind of big slot. I think that because. Are you going to bring in a rookie right off the street and throw him into that role? I don't think so.
Right.
Regardless of who that, I just don't think that's plausible. Now, obviously, if you spend a high draft pick on someone to play the slot, sooner rather than later, you're going to try to get him involved in that thing. And I suppose that, that could be an option, but right out of the chute, I would expect it to be a guy like Claypool just to kind of take over that big slot kind of guy. And also in 2 wide receiver sets, you can still line him up outside, still run him down the field, that aspect, of it. James Washington, obviously not that guy, I don't think, to play in the slot. We'll see what happens even if you re-sign Ray McCloud, I mean, come on, is he a guy that week in, week out, you would want to open up your season with playing in the slot? I don't think so. You can make an argument. Well, why not? Eric Ebron. Well, sure, to some degree that's a possibility there as well too. There, my general thinking on this all along has been that if Juju walks, that Claypool goes into the slot, and then you get yet another more Z type receiver. With some speed to provide that outside threat. And no, I'm not trying to slap James Washington here, but Kevin Colbert always reloading that chamber, right? And aren't we entering James Washington's final season?
Mm-hmm. We are.
All right, so keep that pipeline moving there. And obviously, he came out of Oklahoma State as more of a, known as a combative down the field catching kind of guy. Just doesn't have the blazing speed as someone like a Mike Wallace or Martavis Bryant. My thought has always been that if they lose Juju and ended up drafting a wide receiver, it would be a guy that goes north-south more so than a guy that plays in the slot.
I agree that Claypool would likely get the biggest bump in slot snaps if Juju walks, but still that skill set, because it's just not the same as Juju's. Juju is that tough option choice route over the middle, find the soft spot versus zone coverage, make that tough catch against the linebacker trying to take your head off. Claypool shows some of that, but it's just not the same. And so I think – and it's also not always the best use of his skills either, because he can be such a big playmaker and a vertical guy and a matchup headache on the outside. So that's limiting some of his strengths as well. So
this goes back to them improperly, not using Juju. I mean, those slot fades and stuff like that. I mean, how many pass catches have we seen Juju make? Look, just because he lines up in the slot doesn't mean he can't go deep, and you do some elements of that, or and they try to cross teach these guys anyway to play all the positions on top of it. Look, Deontay Johnson, we saw in his rookie season he can go vertical. I just think in the short term, immediate, that their best option would be to move Claypool into the slot more predominantly.
Sure.
And then obviously, backside X would be Deontay, and then Washington be the Z. Now you could obviously move those guys around, but I just think on a predominant charting aspect of it, that Claypool would be your guy, at least for, depending on who you draft, obviously, but at least for the greater part of the 2021 season. And look, he can dig out those safeties. He can do all that. We've seen Claypool do that dirty work and all. Is he the same type of big slot that Juju is to the T? No, but I think you could still do a lot of things with him though and get by with it.
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can. But when they lost AB, the guy they drafted was Deontay Johnson, which was basically trying to be the next AB, had a very, very similar skill set as Antonio Brown, not to his talent level, of course. Very few guys are, but that same skill set. And I wonder if that would be the approach with Juju. If we lose Juju, we're going to find someone with a very, very similar skill set.
Okay. On a big, do you expect that player to be big like Juju, or do you just more shiftiness, more? I mean, because a smaller guy is not going to be able to do some of the things that Juju would give you in the slot, especially when it comes to run game and stuff.
Yeah, that would be the one concern if you have a smaller slot guy, and so it may not. It's hard to get it 1-to-1 because although that big slot option is becoming more popular, there aren't a ton of guys in this draft class, at least that feel like that. But just overall, the tough routes over the middle, find the soft spot versus zone, just one of those choice routes, having really good chemistry with Ben. That's what I'm thinking about. But that's why I think Willie Snead could be an option because I think he is that slot receiver.
Okay.
And then I had Trent Taylor as kind of I said Trent Taylor was Willie Snead if you ordered him on Wish.com. So
okay, there you go.
And then tight end, I could not find good free agent tight ends. I liked your suggestion of Josh Hill, but this class just sucks. I mean, unless Jesse James gets cut. Is James going to get cut? Because I just did a million cap casualties yesterday, and James was surprisingly not on that list.
I mean, the Lions have had like two different cuts, haven't they already? Mm-hmm. And I think they just had one yesterday or the day before there, and was it the former Bengals center Bodine, Russell Bodine, part of that and all? We'll see. There's still time, maybe he will stick around another year.
Yeah. Or maybe they're just doing this in waves as the new coaching staff evaluates the roster. I'm not quite sure. But the tight ends I suggested were Jeremy Sprinkle of the Washington football team, solid blocker coming out of Arkansas. Only had one catch last year, so he really was just a blocking guy. Mercedes Lewis, I think he's going to come back to Green Bay, but he's one of the best blocking tight ends in football. If you could somehow snag him, even if the dude catches 7 passes all year, I don't care. I want him here as a run blocker. And here's a name that maybe is the most realistic of the list. Out of Jacksonville, James O'Shaughnessy, who actually visited Pittsburgh in 2019 after they lost. Jesse James ended up doing a 2-year deal to stay in Jacksonville, but he's a free agent. And could they, bring him back? He caught 28 passes this past season.
And I think we saw with Stephon Wisniewski kind of putting away the old adage that once they walk out the door after visiting sometime free agent, the door is open. Because Stephon Wisniewski a couple years ago visited with the Steelers during free agency and chose not to sign. And then lo and behold, you get the last offseason and they signed him there. So he's obviously a name that they had interest in. Was it last year, O'Shaughnessy? Or was it the year before?
2 years ago, 2019.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, that's definitely look, if they bring one in, it's going to be more of a blocker, I think. Than anything else. At least that's my hope. And then that way you could go into the draft and see what's out there, and maybe get one in the later rounds. And we've talked high about Kevin Radar and all, but I don't think you can hang your hat on him just yet to be that guy. I think you want a more experienced blocking tight end for the minimum if you can get one. And from where I sit right now, ahead of the NFL draft, I will be surprised if we don't have someone not currently under contract at the tight end position that's more of a blocker that has experience.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think is it fair to say the two most likely areas the Steelers attack in free agency are going to be center and tight end?
Yes, sir. I would, and on the cheap too.
Right.
I would think that. Now, maybe inside linebacker, but I think leading the list is going to be center and tight end on the cheap just to kind of protect yourself going into the draft.
Just classic Kevin Colbert. Dave, today, March 9th, is a very exciting day. It is not the official return of Pro Day since they've already come back. Kansas had one last week, but today is the start of a very busy week of Pro Days, and hopefully we can do our Pro Day tracking and have a very watchful eye on where the Steelers are at today. Kansas State, Northwestern, and your boy Quinn Miners for Wisconsin and Whitewater are having their pro days in a very busy week. Tomorrow is going to be Arkansas and Wisconsin and Maryland. Thursday, Clemson, Nevada, Texas. Friday, the big one is going to be North Dakota State. Apparently 27 teams have signed up to be at that pro day. We'll see if the Steelers are among them. Oklahoma's pro day is also on Friday the 12th. So pro day's heating up, and hopefully we can start getting a gauge for where the Steelers are going.
Boy, I sure miss having those combine stats to pull up and kind of make loose square peg round holes, round peg square holes, kind of looks at this thing. I sure miss that. It'd be interesting to see what kind of information we can start compiling here, at least from a underwear Olympics aspect of it. And I have a feeling it's not going to be that great overall. And I sure do like using some of those numbers, man. Obviously, and helping you look at what to expect on the tape and that kind of thing there. So we'll be following Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin around as best as we can, and I know you're going to be scrubbing the school tape every day, right?
Yep. I tried looking at Kansas because there were apparently, I think, a dozen teams there. I didn't see Pittsburgh there, but there wasn't a lot of reporting, believe it or not, on Kansas's pro day with like one guy working out. So I don't believe they were there, but I couldn't tell you for sure. But the big one to circle, I think, is going to be for the North Dakota State Pro Day. And will they be there? My guess is it's interesting. On Friday, there's going to be Oklahoma, and it's got a lot of prospects there who are interesting. Creed Humphrey, Adrian Ely, Ronnie Perkins, etc. Trey Brown, the corner, and then North Dakota State. So does Tomlin go one place, Colbert go the other? That would probably be the smartest use of their time, but we'll find out.
Boy, that North Dakota State tackle could be a guy in the second round. What's his last name? Ragoons.
Dylan Ragoons.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Look, you dig deeper into his tape, and really you go back to looking at some of the stuff they did in practice at the Senior Bowl. He can play guard if you need him to. Mm-hmm. He showed that he can move. Now, obviously, you wouldn't think that but the Steelers love that position flexibility with him, or in offensive linemen in general. And he played for. I don't think he's a slam dunk first round guy. But anytime after that, he sure would seem to fit the Steelers' bill when it comes to what they look for, in offensive linemen. And Kevin Colbert's been on record saying this tackle class is deep. Once again, I don't view him and it would go against the principles of the Power Five, blah blah blah, first round draft pick and all. But anytime after that, Dylan certainly looks, at least on the tape that I've watched, that he could be right up the Steelers' alley.
If they are at that pro day, I mean, is it more about him or is it more about Trey Lance? Obviously, it's both to an extent, but where do you feel like, okay, they're taking a real long look at Trey Lance if they attend that pro day Friday?
I don't know. You ask a question like that, you go back to that Baylor pro day several years ago, right?
Oh, with Billings, is that what you're talking
about?
Yeah,
and the corner, right?
In the corner?
Who was the corner that came out of there that year?
I just remember Andrew Billings and all the hype around him, and Joe Green was having dinner with him. We all thought Billings was going to be the dude, and I was very wrong about that.
I thought wasn't there a cornerback that year as well too? I thought maybe I'm getting
Stanley Jean-Baptiste. Was he out of Baylor? No, I don't know.
I'll have to look
you
that
may be
up.
right, but I'm not picking up what you're putting down over here, so I apologize. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, the thing with these North Dakota State guys is they barely played football this past year. They played that one showcase game against Central Arkansas, and that was it. So you're just trying to learn more about these guys because you haven't gotten eyes on them. They may have never watched Trey Lance in person before because he wasn't really a known guy that year he broke out in 2019, and you probably sat there and said, okay, we'll send scouts next year, and then pandemic happens and you get only one game out of it.
Xavier Howard.
Oh, okay, Howard. Wasn't there
a little bit of buzz at the time that maybe there was a little bit of interest, maybe the Steelers with Howard, and wasn't that kind of, they're there to see both Billings and Howard at the time. That's why that name keeps sticking in my mind, because they were at that pro day with both those guys there. Xavier and Howard, that was it.
All right, Dave. Any other?
Corey Coleman was in that came out that year as well too from Baylor. So that was. Do you remember Corey Coleman, the wide receiver? So there were kind of three presumed kind of top prospects that year. But anyway, that always sticks in my head. Long story short, I mean they're going to go where the prospects are, and if quarterback looking at quarterbacks which should be involved in this year's process is there, and then obviously the Dylan Ragoons there as well too. It's definitely plausible that somebody would be there.
You're reminding me to never trust my evaluation on a Baylor prospect because I love Billings and Coleman coming out, and I was wrong on both of those guys, and I didn't like Xavier Howard, and I was wrong on him. So I'm reminded of how wrong I was this day.
The story's not completely written on Billings yet either. Now he did, he's had some problems staying healthy, and didn't he opt out this this past year as well too? Now did he become the guy that it looked like maybe he'd become out of shoot? No, but the story's not completely written on him yet. We'll see what happens with him with the Bengals this year.
Right. Any other prospects at these pro days that you want to take a look at? Minors, I mean, would they go to Wisconsin Whitewater? I don't know if they wouldn't send Tomlin or Colbert. Would they send who would be the scout up there? Dave Pettit, maybe? I'm not sure who the scout for that would be, but we'll see on that.
Well, that guy sure is nasty. And if you thought that you could definitely get him to kick inside to center, he definitely Pancake City, man. Especially he showed at the Senior Bowl he belongs. That's for sure.
Right. What about one guy that we haven't talked about much because we just kind of assume he'll be off the board, but Rashawn Slater of Northwestern, who's someone that is a top tackle in this class, but also has been projected by some to move to center. Could that be an option for Pittsburgh?
I haven't looked. I know the name. I haven't gone deep into the tape. Tell me about him.
I haven't really either. I just know he's one of the top tackles in this class. Really good athlete, a little undersized. That's why some people are saying move him to center, move him to guard, that whole classic thing. But I just kind of assumed that he's going to be a top 10, top 15 guy. But you never know. DeCastro fell. No one thought he was going to fall to Pittsburgh at pick number 24, actually, I think it was. So who knows?
Those projection guys early, though, position switch guys are tough, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then other prospects, I think Wednesday is not a whole lot going on with Arkansas and Marshall and Maryland, Wisconsin. Thursday, though, will be a big one, especially Clemson. I would fully expect at least one of Colbert or Tomlin to be at Clemson. They normally are under normal circumstances, and the Tigers, like usual, have a ton of prospects. Martin Rogers, Cornell Powell, the receiver, Jackson Carman, offensive lineman up front, obviously Travis Etienne, the running back. Someone notable from Pittsburgh should be there.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave, I think that's everything I had on the pro days. We'll be following that. And then once we see them at a pro day, I'll get that pro day tracker. I'll probably have that in drafts ready to go because once we see them at a pro day, then we'll get the tracker going so you guys can follow along and we'll keep track of who's going where.
All right.
Dave, I want to stay on college football and the draft here quickly because I think we have a discussion on one guy that's probably worth talking about, projected in Pro Football Focus's 95th mock draft of the week, I think it was, of Rondell Moore, the receiver out of Purdue, projected to go to the Steelers at number 24. And it was funny because I was just finishing up watching the tape on him, had my report on Moore go up this morning on Steelers Depot, and I really like this kid. Now, granted, you have to go back to his 2018 tape, his freshman year, to find the best of Rondell Moore, but he's a really exciting player. He is small, listed 5'9", 180, but he is a strong, tough kid. He's not your typical slot receiver who's quick, but gets taken down by a strong gust of wind. I mean, this is a strong, tough dude, and a lot of fun to watch on tape.
He is fun overall. I think you've gone deeper than I have. I just looked at a little bit of 2019 and some of 2020, looking deeper into kind of his metrics and all. Here's what I see on the tape. Obviously a shifty guy, super sparky, very good after the catch, good contact balance for a guy of his stature, which I think is 5'9", 180. Didn't produce the big plays that you would kind of think, though, overall. Let's see, caught 178 passes for 1,900 yards and 14 touchdowns at Purdue. 12 of those 14 touchdowns, receiving touchdowns that he had, came in 2018. How old were you back in 2018?
I was 6.
Only 16 of his receptions that I can find went for 25 yards or more. I mean, that's less than 10%. And for someone with that shiftiness and ability, you'd kind of think there'd be more plays there. And another thing there is you can easily find his depth of target and all stats, man. I mean, It's low, low. In fact, let's see. Pro Football Focus says that his average depth of target was just 5.8 yards down the field overall, and in 2020 that number was only 3.6 yards. Yikes. That's what I wrote. That's what I wrote here. Pro Football Focus also he's got a little bit of a drop problem there. 10 of the total 188 catchable passes were drops. It seems like more of a frustration on some of those. Just looking in a little bit better. That's not the huge issue with me. Obviously, I think some of the comparisons out there might be Tavon Austin. Is that fair?
Yeah, I thought about Austin, but I think he's stronger than Tavon Austin. My comp for him was Randall Cobb.
Wow,
that's where I came in on Randall. Is that too strong or not strong enough?
That comes in strong. I wouldn't have gone there. Now I haven't done you have looked at him further back than I have. Maybe I need to do a contextualization. I didn't see a lot in his 2020 tape to really get excited about.
Right. The last 2 years have been bumpy for Moore. He got hurt in 2019 with a hamstring injury. Only played 4 games. In 2020 was weird. Only played 3 games. I think it was a COVID thing. And then he was on the sidelines, not playing. Don't know what the situation was there. Left early. Still only 20 years old, too, by the way. So he's a really young guy, which is up the Steelers' alley. But 2018 was, just an electric season. And I understand the average depth of target, and those numbers are low, but he was a slot guy. So those numbers are going to be lower than your X or Z receiver who's playing on the outside and running a lot of routes downfield. And he was really the guy in Purdue's offense. So they threw the ball short to him a lot to let him make plays in space. So I don't know if I want to hold against him too much some of those, lower depth of target numbers. And plus, if you look at his yards per catch, just overall, in 2018 it was 11 yards per catch. In 2019 it was 13 yards per catch. So clearly he's doing a lot after the catch to get up to that double-digit number. It's not like it was a juju number of 8.6 yards per catch is what he ended up with. Not like that. So this was a guy that was just used in that offense of get him the ball any way you can because he's going to make plays in space.
Where is his down-the-field catches, though? Where are they?
I found some. Nevada, there was one in the slot. I think he does a great job of tracking the football over his shoulder, which is such a tough catch for any receiver to make. Probably the toughest one for them to make is tracking it while maintaining speed. But Nevada, I'm not sure if there was one in the Ohio State game in 2018, but there's some examples out there. But again, he was a primary slot receiver, and you just get the ball to him in space and let him be Purdue's biggest playmaker. And
I haven't watched enough to verify the narrative, but manufactured touches for him is what one that you'll read on that. How true is that the last couple of years? Manufacturing touches for him, getting the ball out in space the last couple of years.
It's definitely true. They knew that he was their top weapon, and so their goal was to let him touch the football as much as humanly possible. And that's why there's games where this dude has 10 to 15 catches. That was a common occurrence. So
everybody wants the next Chiefs
Tyreek Hill.
I at no point did I think, maybe the next Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, that's such a high bar. I don't like to come in so heavy with those comps. I don't know if he's not the world-class sprinter that Hill is. I think his speed's excellent. I think he's probably a low 4.4s kind of guy, but he's not. It's just that's such a crazy bar to try to compare him to. I thought Cobb, though, was a good comparison. But when I first was watching him, I was sitting there thinking I wouldn't mind him at 24. I did kind of take a step back and just thought about, would I use – because he's going to be a slot receiver in the NFL. He's never going to be like your guy, outside X receiver type of guy. And so would I use a first-round pick on that type of player on a Randall Cobb? I wouldn't. If he's there at 55, though, if he does happen to slip, he's a lot of fun to watch, and I think he could be a great fit in Matt Canada's offense.
I like him a lot better at 55 than I do. There's a lot of people that say this kid's a kind of a slam dunk first rounder.
Yeah, I think I looked at the one site that tracks where people slot him, and he's coming in around early second round on the average of mock drafts.
Here's what the bottom line from Sam Monsoon. Let's see. And he just wrote this up. A pretty decent scouting report on him that he has on March the 1st on PFF there. His bottom line on there, in fact, his last paragraph is ultimately players who can make impressive athletes look as bad as Moore can without breaking a sweat don't come along that often. He may have a more defined and limited role than some other receivers in this draft, but what he is good at can have immense value, and that should still make him a clear first-round pick. That's strong, man. Is he related to him or what?
I don't think he's wrong, though, in anything that he said about his game. And I understand the manufactured touches, but he was good enough to warrant those touches because he was just an electric playmaker. So I don't always use that as a slight against him. And he would be a really tough, quick, twitched-up slot receiver. Not exactly like Juju, obviously. He's so much differently built, but would be a great slot receiver for the Steelers offense.
My concern, if he and look, I see some of that obviously on the film. I see the explosiveness, I see the shiftiness, I see how they used him out in space and his ability to do stuff after the catch and all like that. But why aren't the big plays there?
So I think if you asked any Purdue fan about big plays in Rondale Moore, I think you'd find all of them saying like he was their playmaker. Have you watched the Ohio State game in 2018 yet?
No. I've watched that game, but I've watched it from different.
Right.
Not watching him.
Watch it specifically for Rondale Moore because I think that will answer your question about can this guy make big plays.
All right, he had this past season. He had 4 receptions. Are we talking about him only? Did he do anything handing the ball? Because they did use him some kind of in the backfield. Kind of occasionally, right?
A lot of jets, a lot of sweeps and stuff like that. Not as a traditional runner, but in terms of jet stuff, yeah, they used them all.
Very Ryan Switzer-like a couple years ago, right?
Well, much better than Ryan Switzer.
I'm just saying usage-wise.
Yeah. It's used in the way they used Ray this year.
Oh, okay.
Not bad?
Ray, you look at his average depth of target, man.
Well, I'm talking about as a run. I'm talking about the jet stuff and things like that.
All right, 2020, obviously only 3 games, right? 35 receptions. Only 4 of those receptions were 15 or more yard gains. 2019, 9 of 29, still not a bad percentage there. 9 receptions of 15 yards or more. So where are we? 9 plus 4 is 13. And in 2018, 22 of 114 receptions were 15 yards or more. So where are we at on 15-yard gains or more? 22 plus 9 is 31 plus 4, 35 receptions of 15 yards or more out of how many total receptions did he have?
70 something.
All right.
I don't have the number here in front of me. But again, I mean, he's a slot receiver, so I can't compare him to a vertical Z type that's 6'4" and they're throwing a bunch of jump balls to him. When his average depth of target is, 5 yards a catch, he's not going to have 30% of those plays become 15-yard gains, but he's turning those into great yak plays. So I think the stats can be a little misleading there because he's not being used the way an outside receiver is going to be used.
Okay, go back to 2018 then, right?
That's the best version of him. Now, granted, the counterpoint to that is that was a couple of years ago. It's been bad since. So we're going to base all that off of a freshman year of tape. That's a valid criticism. Are we going to bank a first-round pick on that? That's fair, I think, for sure.
All right. Should I contextualize him? I mean, that 100 catches are tough to contextualize.
Yeah, I don't think you have to contextualize. Just watch some of his tape. Watch that Ohio State game at least, and let me know if your opinion on him has changed at all.
All right.
Because I will say he took over that game, and they upset number 2 ranked Ohio State that game, and he was a huge reason for that happening.
You agree though, and I'm looking more of it because they mocked him in the first round. That's a mighty feast or famine there. I think for him. Once again, I view him after watching what I watched. I see him as a second round guy.
What do you think is the biggest knock in his game?
Just not catching the ball down the field.
Do you think that was his fault, or do you think that was just the way the offense chose to use it?
I mean, I'm just telling you what I've seen so far. I don't know whose fault it is, so right. I'm going to have to go I'm going to have to see more of his targets down the field.
Okay, fair. If you think it's Purdue's fault, if you go back through more of the tape and you say, well, it's probably just the way the offense used him, then you say you can change the way he's using your offense and make it work. If you say it's his fault, then probably you're not talking about a first-round pick if you think the issues are with him.
Did you watch enough of the ball not in his hands down the field to see how he was used?
Yeah, a couple. I have some all-22 on him, the Boston College game. Yeah, it's not going to be this vertical route tree because he was a slot receiver, and so he's running a lot of slot routes, which aren't always going to be vertical. But you get him the ball in space and let him run a 5-yard drag and let him turn that into a 20-yard gain is I think what he's capable of doing.
And I think our own Tyler Wise said, look, this is the kind of guy that you could really envision Matt Canada using in Matt Canada ways there.
Right. And the thing because there's so many slot guys in college that are 180 pounds and they're twigs and they get taken down so easily. And those guys don't generally have a lot of success in the NFL, but he's so strong. The core strength is so great with him that he's such a tough dude. He can break tackles and he can get yak and drag guys. I mean, this guy can squat 600 pounds. I mean, this guy is rocked up. He's one of the strongest, toughest 180-pound dudes that you're going to find. Like
600 something squat or something, didn't he?
Yeah. There's I have the video in the post of the scouting report of him squatting 600 pounds. It's like Mike Hilton playing receiver. It's just this guy that doesn't look like much, but is just rocked up and physical and just a pain to bring down for DBs. And so that, to me, is what defines it differently. If he was just, a twig guy and wasn't very strong, probably not worth it because he's going to get taken down like G. Archer did. But this guy is really strong and tough.
Adam Schefter is reporting on Bud Dupree that he has been informed that he will not be franchise tagged again this year.
A big surprise. But Dupree is headed to free agency according to Schefter. Yeah, they were not going to use a tag on him or any Steeler this year, but that is confirmation.
Absolutely.
All right, Dave. Yeah, no surprise that they're on the Schefter report. The Steelers were not going to tag Bud Dupree. We basically already knew that. They're not going to franchise tag anybody. They do not have the cap space to afford that. But Schefter confirming that Dupree will hit free agency and basically confirms that he will not be back in Pittsburgh in 2021.
Making news out of non-news.
It's free agency. Yeah, not a huge story there, but worth noting anyway. And so just rehashing kind of the same old conversation. So
probably the biggest news from Adam Schefter this morning is that Chris, and it was kind of expected, is that Chris Godwin is getting franchise tagged by the Buccaneers. That's one less bit of competition for Juju out there on the market.
Yeah, what did you think of? Not that I care too much. Actually, I don't care at all. But Pete Prisco had.
Oh, you don't care what I think? Okay.
No, about Pete Prisco. I don't care what Pete Prisco has to say. I don't think you do either. Ranking like Corey Davis and who else did he have ahead of Juju in his free agency rankings?
The bigger question is who didn't he have ahead of? Yeah, I wrote that up there. Not that Pete Prisco will go down in the annals as premier guy there, but. He had Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, Kenny Golladay, Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis, all ranked ahead of Juju Smith-Schuster in his free agency rankings there. And boy, when you look at numbers dating back to 2017, not that that's the end-all, do-all, but just kind of a loosely look at it. Juju, of the 10 guys that Prisco had on his list here, Juju leads them all in receptions. He leads them all in receiving yardage, and he leads them all, I believe, in touchdowns, and he leads them in catch percentages as well too. So, look, is there guys that you could put on this list ahead of Juju? I mean, Chris Godwin's obviously a guy that's in the conversation. Allen Robinson with the Bears is a guy. I'm not sure that the list doesn't stop there though, as far as ranking guys ahead of Juju in free agency.
I think you could argue Golladay. I mean, they're just different types of receivers, different roles. Even him and Samuel are differently used kind of slot receivers. I would not put Corey Davis ahead of Juju, though, for sure. And I probably wouldn't put Samuel either. So, again, don't really care too much. But I did feel like Juju was a little bit low there.
All right, who is now? Who is the top possible available wide receiver on the market now that Chris Godwin's locked up?
Is it Allen Robinson?
It's either Allen or Juju, right? Or no?
Yeah.
Where's T.Y. Hilton at this point in his career?
I mean, 3 years ago, T.Y. Hilton would have been top of the list probably, but not anymore.
I mean, Juju's got to be right up there, right? If you don't rank him top 2, you have to rank him top 3, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Dude's 24. I mean, how often do established 24-year-old receivers come on the market? Not too often.
Right. So
dude could be a rookie and be 24.
Yeah, exactly. An old rookie.
Contract. All right. Anyway, anything else here to discuss? I think we had a good conversation on Rondale Moore. I like him a lot. At 24, that may be a bit strong, but I think he's going to be a really good NFL player.
All right. I will look deeper into him, and we shall continue that conversation.
All right. Good deal. Anything else to get to, Dave? Or we can get to read emails
and
close out today's
let's
show.
get to some emails here. Colin Finnegan writes in, hey, guys, in light of the recent comments made by Connor about not wanting to leave, do you think it's possible he circles back on a hometown discount? I've been in your camp all year that he's gone, but if he is serious, I think his past pro and experience would be valuable to a rookie, and he has Harrison in quotation marks with a question. Of course, only if he's willing to take a very team-friendly deal, so maybe I'm just another fan wanting to believe he's willing to do that. If you want to get paid, you want to earn a living, and you want to have security, you can't be taking no hometown discounts. And a hometown discount right now when it comes to the Steelers, you would think would be right at the minimum, right, Alex?
Right, and even then, do the Steelers even want him back? I mean, even in this hypothetical, he takes this deep discount. I think they just want to move on, and they want to try to find someone new to lead their run game that was so bad last year. Not that Connor is solely responsible for that. He surely isn't, but I think Pittsburgh's just ready to move on to somebody new.
Look, it's a great story there, but you can't pay this guy $3, $4, $5 million or $6, as some have him ranked. I think as possibly getting. He'd really want to have to return, and some team out there I think is going to be willing to pay him more, at least to maybe even start the season as a starter bell cow for them. I will be shocked if he's back with the Steelers. It literally would have to be right around the minimum on say a 1-year deal, and I just don't see that happening.
Right. I mean, if he played for free, I think the Steelers would be like, we're good. Like, I just don't think they want to bring James Conner back.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris Bailey writes in, I have a podcast question that's right in Dave's wheelhouse. 5th-year option talk. I understand from listening to Joe Corey's podcast that the way a player's 5th-year option cost is calculated will change in 2021 due to the new CBA, and the first draft class it will affect is the 2018 class, rather than it being based on whether the player is selected inside or outside the top 10. I believe it's now based on the original ballot Pro Bowl selections and percentage of snaps played. Please, can you discuss how this will affect the Steelers, as we have 2 players on our roster that were drafted in the first round, Minka and Terrell Edmonds. I wrote about, Chris, go back and look at the, just search Edmonds or 5th-year option, I think, on the blog. I wrote that up several weeks ago now about how, the Steelers' 5th-year options will be kind of cut and dry. And look, it's still going to be determined, I think, a little bit. The number's still not known yet, and not going to be specifically known, I think, until the cap number comes out here. But I think loosely, Edmonds' number going to be around $6 million, and obviously Fitzpatrick's a lot more than that. I don't have it in front of me. Something like around $8 million, I think, 5th-year option on Minka because of the whole Pro Bowl thing, and I haven't committed those to memory yet because it's still kind of an unknown number, and I'm trying to vamp here and stutter along to try to find out exactly what I wrote on here about these guys. Let's see here. The 5th-year salaries are no longer strictly tied to where a player was drafted. Performance dictates the option year salaries, with 2 or more Pro Bowl selections on the original ballot during the first season, blah, blah, blah. One Pro Bowl selection, this is all from Joe Corey, on the original ballot during his first 3 seasons at the transition tenor, which is an average of the 10 highest salaries for a player's position in the 4th year of his contract. So Minka is assured of a 2022 5th-year salary at the 2021 transition tender for their respective positions. And let's see here. So what does that mean for Fitzpatrick? He estimates, Joe Corey estimated on his podcast, fifth-year option for Fitzpatrick for 2022 is $10.176 million. And that's if the NFL salary cap number comes in at the agreed to amount floor of, and that was at $175 million. So we're looking at even more on the number. He says he also estimates that the amount for 2022 will be $11.525 million if the cap number ultimately comes in at the high, 198.2, which was the same as 2020, which I think nobody's expecting it to come in at that amount. So basically, we're looking at between 10.1 and 11.5, somewhere in that number there. Edmonds, it looks like might be around $7 to $8 million neighborhood on the fifth-year option for him. So once again, if you want to look, I think the title of that post, if you want to search it out, is Steelers looming fifth-year option decisions on safety should be easy to make.
Okay. There you go.
Let's see if we can squeeze another one in here. Patrick Donovan drafting a quarterback. First, let me say I love you guys and the works the whole Depot team does. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you for that, Patrick. Number one, if Vince Williams is cut, where does that put the need at for inside linebacker in this draft? Could Avery Williamson be possibly re-signed if this happens?
It's possible, but I think Williamson wants to try to go somewhere to be a starter, and I still think Spillane probably beats him out in Pittsburgh, even if Vince is cut. So obviously the odds would increase. It
would have to be cheap.
Yeah,
Avery'd have to sign like a 2-year deal, something where his cap number comes in not much more than between $1 and $2 million. Something. And do you want that? I mean,
right. And he's not playing a ton of special teams either. So yeah. It's interesting, though. I mean, would you go all in?
I tell you what I do. I'd go to Vince Williams and say, come on, man, take the $1 million.
What if he's like, I'm not playing for $1 million?
Well, then I had to obviously look around out there, and I think Vince needs to realistically look at what may or may not be out there for him as well too. Could they do something maybe on a 2-year extension? Would you extend Vince right now?
Man, I'm a big Vince Williams fan, but I don't like extending players just for the sake of like cap space and stuff.
Right.
Right. So it's dicey, but I'm saying if Vince is cut, I mean, do you like go whole hog and sign or draft, I should say, a Zaven Collins or a Micah Parsons and have him next to Devin Bush, or do you roll with Spillane and just address depth, or what is the approach there?
I think you have to address the position regardless, period, what happens here.
Okay. Even if Vince stays.
Even if Vince stays, I think you have to look, and because of Ulysses Gilbert and them back problems and all, I think you still have to look at, I don't care if it's 6 rounds, somebody could come in and be a special teams tackle demon for you or something, a la Tyler Matakevich, Is Tyler going to survive in Buffalo with that contract?
Good question. I haven't followed their cap situation.
But anyway, I think regardless, you address a position. Now, boy, that's Zaven. He just had an interview on NFL.com, and he says he preferred to play out and not outside linebacker in the Steelers. Outside linebacker for the Steelers versus outside linebacker in a 4-3 is obviously a lot different position, but he'd much rather play outside in a 4-3 to hear him talk. So,
well, too bad. We're playing inside in Pittsburgh.
He's not opposed to playing inside. Obviously, there's talk about him maybe playing in a 4-3 inside. And all, but boy, once again, that guy's a Planet Theory type guy there. But long and short of it, if Vince Williams is cut, I would be shocked if Avery Williamson is brought back, if that's the question.
Okay, fair enough.
A few weeks ago when Coleman and Rooney spoke about Ben, they mentioned how they had some things to work out. Number one being his contract and cap hit of $42 million. Number two, putting the most competitive team around him. Number two doesn't get mentioned, but it makes it believe that they won't draft a quarterback this year only because of drafting a quarterback doesn't help put the most competitive team around Ben. I could be wrong, but listening to them talk and the way they said it, I just don't see them drafting a quarterback. He goes on to say the odds of a quarterback even being a franchise franchise quarterback is super low, blah, blah, Josh Rosen, Lynch, Wentz, Goff, Mariota, Winston, Trubinsky. I know there are more, but just to mention a few recent ones. Some aren't in the league, and besides Trubinsky, none of them are the team that drafted them. 2 of them were number 1 picks, and 2 were number 2 picks. Dave, I'll continue. Okay, getting into my health and all. I appreciate the thoughts on my health and all, Patrick. But to the question at hand here, once again, it goes back to, and Kevin Colbert would tell you this: if we feel that we can better the organization, and if we view that we can get a franchise quarterback, and that's why we did this, that's why they would go and draft a quarterback in. I would hope they would do it in the first round and the first round only. If you get it into the Kyle Trask in the second round, I kind of question the decision making there. Do I think it's plausible it could happen in the first round? I'm not going to be floored if they don't draft a quarterback at all. And that's kind of been my thoughts on this for a while now. But I think with the Ben situation here, you at least have to open it up to the possibility that if they got the guy that they wanted there in the first round, they would get the guy. And that's the long and short of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been in the camp of, go for it if you have someone you like and they're available in some form or fashion, Trey Lance, Mac Jones, whoever. But I don't know what direction the Steelers actually will go. And I do kind of lean towards they probably won't end up taking one because that likely requires a trade up, requires maybe trading more assets this year. It goes against that whole, comment of, we're trying to build the best team around Ben. So I don't know how they're going to view it or how they're going to feel about the quarterback class. I have no real inclination, but I think it is fair to say that odds are better they don't take a quarterback than they do take a quarterback this year, which is a pretty safe statement.
Yeah, I think we're going out on a limb there, right?
Yeah, big leap of faith.
All right, one from Dave Rickards. Dave, would you mind putting together a segment that fully explains the basics and more complex aspects of what creates dead money on the salary cap? I think most of us understand the basic meaning, but probably less so the math and scenarios which create dead money. I know it's a complicated subject, so if you don't want to dive in on the mailbag, I fully understand. Dave, maybe I'll dedicate to it's a long off season. Maybe I'll go back and write another post on that. But generally, usually outside of money being guaranteed in a contract and then a player getting cut, most of the time when you're talking about dead money, you're talking about signing bonus money that's been paid out to a player that has been prorated over the length of said years of contract. When that player's cut, that proration has to accelerate. And that's what you're paying for in dead money, assuming we're not talking about guaranteed money that's on the books for a player in future years, be it a roster bonus or a base salary there. But 9 times out of 10, your dead money is coming from signing bonus proration, and that signing bonus already paid to a player that's being prorated out for the length of the contract just for salary cap purposes and salary cap purposes only. Once that player's cut, you cannot prorate that over the length of the deal. And then obviously the June 1st date falls into there when actually the acceleration takes place there. But we'll go into I'll try to make it a note, Dave, to go further into this in a post at some point during the off season here. But you know me, I love talking about the cap and that kind of stuff there.
Absolutely. Real quick, interesting tweet from Jeremy Fowler just came across the wire. Quote, the expectation league-wide is 3 of the top free agent receivers, Chris Godwin, Kenny Galladay, Allen Robinson, will receive the franchise tag. Godwin has been informed he's getting tagged per Adam Schefter, which you mentioned earlier. So expectation is Galladay and Robinson will also get tagged, which opens up Juju Smith-Schuster's market even bigger.
Then you're coming to the fact where you kind of unquestionably have to consider Juju the top wide receiver on the market. If indeed that, I mean, obviously Godwin's already tagged. Mm-hmm. If Galladay and Robinson, then it's no question, in my opinion, especially when you're looking at under. How old's Hilton now? Ty, he's like 30, isn't he?
He's like 30, right? Yeah. His hamstrings are like 40. He pulls a hamstring every day. Yeah, Juju's like the top receiver on the market for sure. And that's going to drive up the price all the more.
Right. So if you're in the camp that the Steelers should not keep Juju, then this is big news, obviously, because you want Juju to get the biggest bag as possible because you want that third-round compensatory draft pick value, So,
right. And if you want Juju back, if you're in that camp, well, the price just went up.
Yeah, I mean, like I've written all along, it's got to be 16 at the floor, and that's him giving a discount. I think it's $17.5 million right around in there at that. So, interesting bit of news from Jeremy Fowler there.
Yep. All right, Dave. Good show. We will be back on Friday.
We will be back indeed on Friday. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, please go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upright navigational bar, and for $25 for one calendar, you can have an ad-free version of the site. And on top of that, we hope you listen to our Facebook or our YouTube live stream on Monday. They'll be back this Monday night, right, Alex?
Yep, this upcoming Monday, we'll back for the live stream.
And additionally, the Terrible Take, 5 days a week and sometimes 6, depending on if we get any good user submissions as well, too. I believe it's my turn up on this Tuesday. It's a little short mini podcast, comes out 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and just a quick 2-minute or so mini podcast, if you will. That's been a huge success. Got a lot of great feedback on that so far, and we hope you're tuning into that as well, too, where you listen to the Terrible Podcast at. So, until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.